running for re-election for school board. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in West Texas. I am a West Texas conservative. Our parents reared me and my three siblings with those very conservative values, which we have all maintained to this day. I am also a lifelong Republican. I have never been a Democrat, even when it was not cool to be a Republican in Okaloosa County. I'm a big believer in states' rights, and one of those states' rights is education. The Constitution reserves certain things to the states, and one of them is education. I think the federal government needs to be out of education. I have told two of our congressmen on two separate occasions that we need to put a for sale sign in front of the USDOE. I am the architect of our career technical program in Okaloosa County, which is now morphed into STEM. It has been replicated by other states. It is the model for the state of Florida, and has won many national awards. In 2012, in the state of Florida, 25% of the school districts made A's. That was 17 districts. In 2013, just last year, 7% made A's. That was 5 districts. And Okaloosa County was not one of them. So what are we doing about that? We are determined that we are going to turn that around. But we need some help with some regulations that the state has imposed upon us that are obviously not working, we don't think. So just like the coach from Alabama, you know, Alabama was #1 for 2 years in a row and for most of this year until the last 2 games. But the young men are still in line to try to play for Alabama. So we have to keep our eye on the fact that even though we have fallen from an A to a B district, our parents are still happy with our school system. They still think their children are getting a good education and that they are getting ready for careers or college. STEM is a big thing in education now, and let me tell you a little bit why there is all of a sudden, or not so much all of a sudden, but why there is so much emphasis on STEM. The United States has fallen to 9th in the number of graduates that we have in STEM majors, and we were always right up at #1 or #2. By the 12th grade, only 17% of our graduates are both proficient and interested in STEM subjects. 17%. Now, there are 27 who are proficient in it. 27% are proficient. They're not interested. They don't want to go into the STEM field. And after 10 years, only 8 of them will be employed in a STEM field. So it's important that we're losing the race on STEM education if we don't put more emphasis on it. So in America, in Okaloosa County, we have STEM in all of our schools. We have it from kindergarten through 12th grade. I just went to a STEM competition at the STEM Academy just before I came here, where they were working on Legos robots, where they were creating. It was absolutely phenomenal to see the things that these kids had built out of Legos, and then they go to the computer and tell it what to do. So they were having to run through a maze. They would come up to a dead end, and they would back out and start over and go down, and it was a maze like on the floor, and it was amazing to see these junior high, middle school and high school students working on these STEM projects. I asked one young man who was from Niceville High School, and they're the ones that kind of organized this whole thing. I said, "Did you do this when you were in elementary school?" And he said, "No." I said, "Don't you wish you could have?" And he said, "Yes. We just played with Legos, but we didn't have all the mechanics that they have now. We didn't have a computer that it was hooked up to. We could not program it to do the things that it's doing." Again, my name is Cindy Frakes. I'm running for School Board District 1. The election is not until August. I know that seems like a long time away for all of you, but I think about it all the time. I would appreciate your support. Cindy Frakes for District 1 School Board. Thank you, and y'all have a great day.
All right, we're back with our next guest, Cindy Frakes. She is also running for school board. You're running again. So we just did interview Dr. Lamont Hill, who's the one who's running against you. But a couple of things I want to ask you. Tell the viewers, who are you? Why do you want to hold your position?
Thank you. I'm Cindy Frakes. I've been on the school board for 16 years. I ran 16 years ago. My main campaign plank was career technical education. I had been on the School Advisory Council at what we called then OATC, the Okaloosa Applied Technology Center. I thought it was underutilized, that we needed to elevate our career technical education. At that time, 65% of the jobs, in fact, this statistic is still true today, 65% of the jobs require more than a high school education but less than a college education. I'm a firm believer that every student does not need to go to college, but I also believe that every student needs some kind of formal training post-secondary. I think every citizen has the right to reach the American dream, and the only way they're going to do that is with some kind of formal education. 65% of our jobs do still require some kind of technical training. 20 years ago, an engineering project, for instance, probably would require 10 engineers, but today that same project would hire 3 engineers and 7 engineering techs who probably have a 2-year technical degree. So that technical education is very important. It's also very responsive to our local businesses. They, for instance, right now they are clamoring for welders. We are turning welders out just as fast as we can, and they need more than we can turn out. There are some projects that are coming up in the local area that are going to require a lot of machinists and welders. The ship that's coming into Mobile, it will be built there. They will go to a 100-mile radius from Mobile to hire employees. And our Crestview Airport is exactly 100 miles away. So we are trying to gear up our employees to be ready for some of those jobs when they get here in a couple of years, and we are doing that through training. Another thing that our local businesses are clamoring for are machinists, and we are collaborating with the college to offer a machining course. It's very expensive because of the equipment that's required to train the students, but the college will probably be providing that, and we will have some business partners as well. But that's one thing that I'm wanting, and you ask about why I want to continue doing this, is because I want to make sure that some of these other programs that we have coming on, that they get implemented, that they get approved by the school board, and that they are good for our community and they are good for our economy. When I was on the president of the Economic Development Council and was also on Workforce Development Board, I talked about E-cubed, about employment, education, and economic development. To move our county forward, we have to have all 3 of those. It's like the 3 legs of a stool. You're going to get wobble if you don't have all 3. So I have worked in all 3 of those areas to keep our economy in our area strong, to keep our employees trained so that they are ready for the changes that are coming in the state of Florida.
Hot topic question. Former Governor Jeb Bush and the Governor Association backs Common Core. Okaloosa County School Board voted for Common Core. In your opinion, do you feel that Common Core is going to be a benefit to students, or do you think that it is going to lower their intelligence levels?
Let me correct your statement. First of all, what the school board voted for was a grant. Now, we can there are a couple of ways that we can get more money for our school district than what is supplied by the state. One is we can raise taxes, or the other is we can apply for grants. Now, the voters have pretty well told us that they're not interested in us raising taxes. So we apply for every grant that we can. This was a grant that we applied for. Common Core was really not instituted in it that deeply when we did this. And now you have to remember the time frame when we applied for this grant. We were suffering from the lowest economy that we have had since the Great Depression of the 20s and 30s. We were trying desperately to keep our schools open and to keep our teachers employed. We were faced with the idea of having to cut employees considerably, and we did not want to have to do that. So, yeah, we applied for the grant. Common Core is about elevating standards. We are all for having the highest standards in across the curriculum in all levels of our schools. Common Core is, I think, people, you got to look at through the right end of the telescope. I don't know that the standards, I can't get anyone to tell me one standard that they object to. What they object to are the exemplars, which are the examples that are used in the standards, and the teachers can use whatever examples they want. For instance, if it's a faith-based school, if it's a Catholic school, they can select something from church history. They can select their church documents to use as their examples that they use for teaching. But the exemplars are just examples, and the teachers are free to substitute whatever they want. I would be more concerned about the assessment piece, and I think that's what we need to be concerned about. Right now, that's in a big uproar in Florida. They have selected what they're going to use for that, but it has not yet been vetted. They say they're going to implement that next spring. It will be vetted through Utah students. Florida is just spending $6 million to buy test questions from the state of Utah, and it will be vetted with Utah students. I think we need to vet it with Florida students before we start giving it as a high-stakes test to our Florida students.
So for the record, you support Common Core?
I support high standards. I don't support necessarily Common Core. I support high standards. And I support what we are doing with those high standards in Florida. In Florida, for years, we had the Sunshine State Standards. And then about 3 years ago, we changed those to the Next Generation Sunshine State Standards. And now we're raising the standards again. But again, I say if people are concerned about Common Core, they need to make sure they're concerned about the right thing, and that should be the assessment piece.
Or the education, because to piggyback on that, there is a lot of articles that have come out from the Daily Caller that has done a great job on reporting about Common Core, and so has Fox News, that has come out about the certain math problems that they are asked, the kind of history that's actually being taught in these schools. And this isn't just Florida. I mean, this is all around. And they're in some cases, they're saying that President Lincoln and Ronald Reagan were liberal. And that was reported out from the Daily Caller. And even I have those printouts. I went to a website not too long ago, actually Friday when I got off the air, and I was trying to reach Mary Beth Jackson. And what I noticed was there's a little bubble, nice little icon sitting over to the right that said Common Core. So, I mean, with all these reports that are actually out here and the kind of math problems that are being shown through the news media on Common Core, I don't think anybody opposes to higher standards for higher education, making people smarter or making our schools better in competition with countries all around. But I think it's what's actually being taught in the schools that a lot of people are having a problem with, because you're beginning to see people rewriting history, whether it's talks about Islam, whether it's talks about religion, whether it's talks about history. It's all beginning to be rewritten. So now that we are having Common Core in our schools. Is that correct?
First of all, there are no history standards for Common Core. It's only for math and language arts. History has not yet been added. So I don't know about the teaching some of those things that you mentioned. That is not a part of the Common Core standards, and it's not a part of the Florida standards that we are currently using. And then the other thing you asked was... I don't know. I don't remember what your other comment was that I was going to respond to, but I'll give it back to you.
All right. Any final thoughts on why you're running?
I'm running to keep our education system strong in Okaloosa County. I think the parents, for the most part, are very happy with our education system. They tell me that every day. In fact, somebody stopped by the booth just now and told me that they moved here because of our education system from Kansas. She actually let her daughter research and determine the school she wanted to go to, and she got it narrowed down to 3, all in the state of Florida. And she came here. She's a senior at Niceville High School, and she chose it because of the debate opportunities and because of the curriculum that they had at Niceville High School. So I think we have a 92% approval rating from our parents when they do the climate survey. So I think overall our parents feel like their children are getting a good education. I know what I wanted to comment about, Andi, was about the math. There are many ways to teach math. In the United States, we have typically taught the same way that probably all of us taught. We learned math, we learned addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, and we learn it the pretty standard way. But that's not the only way to learn math, and it's not necessarily the way that it's being taught in other countries. So I think it is foreign for parents when a child brings home something and they're doing it and they're drawing boxes around things and doing things that don't make any sense to the parents. They're thinking something's wrong with that approach. But it's just a different way of teaching math, and for the most part, the kids are getting it. But the advantage of it is going to be that when they get to the higher level math, they're going to have a different way of, more students are going to be able to do the trig and the calculus because of the background that they have had in this. Now, I wanted to mention one thing. You said, did I have anything else I wanted to say? I want to talk about STEM a little bit. I started, was the architect for our career technical education, and now that's kind of morphed into the STEM things. STEM is, the United States now is number 9 as far as the students who graduate with a degree in a STEM subject. We were number 1 or number 2. The United States is falling in our race for STEM. Students are not interested as much in STEM. We have 17% who are proficient and interested in STEM, 17% who are both proficient and interested. 27% are proficient, but they're not interested. I attended a STEM competition today, and I attended one last week that was sponsored by Jacobs Engineering and Eglin. It was the 18th year for the competition last week. And it was letting the kids do things, hands-on science projects that makes them more interested in STEM. For instance, they had for civil engineering, they built a bridge out of popsicle sticks and then put an implement on it to see how much pressure it would hold. The young woman who won from Shoal River Middle School, her bridge held 1,000 pounds of pressure. Absolutely phenomenal. And then for aeronautical engineering, they made an airplane and to see whose would fly the farthest. And then for mechanical engineering, they had a race mousetrap car, and again, to see how far it would go. And these are all hands-on things that the students do in class that piques their interest, that gets their interest up in the STEM and shows them that there is applicability of STEM subjects, and it's not all doing math problems all day long, but it's actually doing real-world things and doing hands-on things that are fun. The competition today was a Lego tournament sponsored by Lego, the Lego League competition, and the things the kids were doing were absolutely phenomenal, that they would build a computerized vehicle out of Legos and then program it on a computer to tell it to do certain things, to go through a maze, to pick up balls and dump it in a location. And the kids were very engaged, and I had to leave before it was over to come here. But it was a very interesting thing, and the kids were loving it. Thank you.
All right, Cindy Frakes running for school board, Okaloosa County District 1, and we'll be back up with our next guest.
My name is Cindy Frakes. It rhymes with breaks.
Frakes, not Franks, Frakes.